Hello everyone and welcome back to Satisfactory. In the last episode, we were able to go on quite the adventure, collecting as many summer sloops, Mercer spheres, and hard drives as we could possibly find, as well as pick up any slugs that we might have found along the way. And as a byproduct of that, we found a lot of corpses just laying around, absolutely just laying on the ground. But in this episode, our plans are big, our first real mega factory. And what will we be making? Well, why don't you stick around and find out. So if mega factories are your thing, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and let's jump right in to Satisfactory. So I'm sure we're all wondering what the big project is for today. Well, that big project would be getting our power situation a little bit nicer. Our production is only 2,500 megawatts. Now, that was a lot to begin with, but our maximum consumption is over 5,000. That's quite a bit of difference, and we may not be able to manage this too much longer. The majority of the factory is kind of just at a standstill right now, and there's not too many things being produced. And that's keeping our consumption way down. We have plenty of things for our next phase of project assembly, and I'm not ready to move on to the next phase just yet. Project assembly is gonna have to wait. Sorry, Ada. But after our adventure, I've been a pretty busy little pioneer. I decided that I was really sick of my trucks getting in each other's way, and I made an enormous highway for my trucks. This has definitely improved the logistics side of things, the transportation of said goods. All of my plastic and rubber is definitely coming over a lot faster, and I'm not getting that annoying little mark in the top where it says your trucks have collided. They just kept getting in each other's way, and I decided it was time to blueprint a highway. The blueprint highway solves two problems. Problem number one was my trucks kept getting in each other's way. Problem number two, I needed oil back at the base. I made two different blueprints. One is just a regular straight piece highway with some pillars underneath. We can actually have logistics come down these, and I can belt highway a lot of stuff a lot easier. We can put these every 2 or 3, and it should be enough space in between. Maybe we do it every other one. I don't know. I haven't tested this one out yet. On the other one, I just deleted the center bits and just made a giant highway. I mean, it was pretty simple. The worst part was getting this in the middle, but with the hold and able to move things over, it was pretty easy, really. So, if you didn't know, when you're placing an object and you press H, you can nudge things into whatever place that you would want them. So if you want them here, for say, you just nudge it over and boom, there it is, in the exact spot that you wanted it. Pretty handy, really. But with the highway completed, what I decided to do was start trucking over a lot of the oil, the packaged oil that we've been producing. The plan is to be able to make weapons as often as we can. Now, I was limited on space, and as you can see, Mr. Beep is having a hard time of this. It's a pretty sharp turn. I didn't quite have the amount of tiles that I wanted that made sense, but because of recent updates, they kind of just glitch out and get back into place where they should be. But it did mean that I'd had to redo all the paths for the plastic and the rubber. Yeah, it took a while. Once I got this completed, it was pretty easy to put the paths back down, but it was just time consuming. Factory logistics. You get factoried by things, and then all of a sudden, you realize more factory must be made. But getting the oil back to base was kind of a difficult thing, so I decided to just come up here where we already have our Caterium coming across, and I just piped that sucker up, down, around, underneath, and all the way over where we need to go. It worked out pretty well. There's not too many things in the way of this packaged oil to go over there. So it worked out. And now I have all the homing rifles, smokeless powder, and other things that I could have ever wanted. But with that being said, now it's time to move on to our next big project. And it's our first real mega factory. And what will it be? Well, it resides here in the Sulfur tab. And it hides right behind here under experimental power generation. This we need to unlock so that we can get the thing that we want, and I bet you know what it is. So with everything that we need in hand, we'll go ahead and start the research and unlock whatever tiers are underneath this.
Research completed. Experimental power generation research options are now available. These may enhance performance of other fuel sources.
And that's what I'm counting on. Turbo fuel. Oh yeah, baby. We are going to make a turbo fuel factory. But first, we have to unlock it. And to get that, we're going to need the compacted coal and a hard drive. Now, this is the first one you've needed to have a hard drive to unlock, I believe. If not, then I don't remember it. But that's not a problem. We can go ahead and collect up some sulfur, collect up some coal, and unlock the compacted coal recipe. That way we can make a little for the turbo fuel. We just need to set up a quick little assembler here to manufacture ourselves a little bit of compact coal. We'll select the recipe, throw in all the stuff that we have, hook up the power, and boom, compacted coal on the go. Now we just need to wait. Waiting is done. We're gonna power shard this. I need my compacted coal, and I've got it. So with the compacted coal in hand, now it's time to unlock that turbo fuel. Oh baby, this is going to be epic.
Turbo fuel unlocked. This upgrade to regular fuel is optimal for fuel-powered generators, jetpacks, and fulfilling long-distance trucker fantasies.
Trucker fantasies? Heck yeah, I love the beep. Now you might be thinking to yourself, where in the world are we gonna go to make turbo fuel? The oil setup that we have, it doesn't produce enough oil. And you'd be right. Well, it's gotta be in a place that has plenty of sulfur, coal, and oil. And I can only think of one place. The Blue Crater Lake. Oh yeah. This place has everything that we need. And it actually got a boost of sulfur. So it should be pretty easy to get the sulfur we needed. And we'll base all of our recipe on the amount of sulfur that we can get to this area. Now, there is only one problem with this area. It has spooky spiders, and it has a lot of other things. So we're gonna have to kind of clear out a lot of the locals. But because we got the oil thing figured out, it shouldn't be too bad. We can just use the homing rifles now. We can use them at nauseam. I have so many saved up. 1,500 plus an entire crate full? I mean, it's time to say goodbye to all you nasty little flies and all you ugly little spiders and your friends too. Now, while clearing out a lot of the locals, we're gonna find some things. We're gonna find a lot of summer sloops and other things because we didn't adventure here. This is definitely one place where we kind of stayed away from. And the reason is, I knew I was coming here to build this turbo factory. It was going to be kind of a one-stop shop. So while I'm kind of clearing the area, I'm definitely going to take the time to try to find all the sloops, Mercer spheres, and anything else if we happen upon them. I'm not going to seek them out, but I'm definitely going to clear the wildlife because this is where the oil is, and I need all of this oil. Every little bit of it. For my current endeavors and future endeavors as well. So please forgive me while I clear out the local riffraff and take what's mine. Okay, local area secured. And now it's time to just concrete everything. Now, we will need to blow a few things up because they're in the way. The really unfortunate thing is that some of these things are non-destructible. These big purple pillars, yeah, I can't figure out a way to get rid of them. But everything else, even those giant mushrooms, they seem to be destructible. And boom, it's gone. These here, the gray ones, they're destructible as well. But yeah, try as I may, these things, they don't go away. So we'll have to kind of build around them. Now, building around them shouldn't be too difficult. And we do have this wonderful little geyser, and I kind of want to make this like a centerpiece somehow. I don't know how I'm going to do it, and I haven't unlocked the geyser technology yet, but I would like to kind of build the entirety of this biome around this one kind of focal point. I think it'd be really cool to have this spewing its gas and water or whatever it is. We can even utilize it for power later. So with that in mind, we need to plan out our mega factory. And how are we going to do that? Well, with every great journey starts with a single step. So, step 1, I think this is going to be our center point. I'm kind of trying to think of a line that kind of follows all the way from there to there. Now, how exactly, if we're going to put this on the world grid, I don't think that's going to work for me. So we're going to do it my way, which will probably be a bad idea. But I'm thinking here might be the beginning of it, and then we'll just have lots of verticality. Now, how high and all that stuff, I'm not really sure. I kind of just build and figure it out from there. Now, I know we're going to need a lot of water, and we're going to have plenty of that because it's a lake and there's water literally everywhere. But we're going to need that for the different kinds of fuel because there's a real specific recipe that we need, and we need to unlock that recipe. And the only way we're going to get that is by researching some hard drives. So we're going to have to get our hard drives out, all of them, including the ones that we found around here, and start researching them. As many as we possibly can till we get the 2 recipes that we need. The diluted packaged fuel, well, we already have that one. We got that one a while back, and I knew I needed it, so I snagged it up when I saw it. This basically turns water into fuel. That's like the Jesus of Fix-It Corporation. The other one we're looking for is a heavy oil alternative. So while we build, we'll just kind of keep throwing hard drives in here and see if we can't get it. So we'll just go ahead and start building, and hopefully we'll be able to get what we want. I just want to be taller than the water production, without clipping, of course. So it looks like about right here should be good. And then, boom, that's going to be that. But we need a couple things. As I want to concrete this entire biome, one of the things that I really like to do, and this is just kind of a personal preference, is I like to make a local concrete factory. That way I can have all of the concrete I want at hand. And luckily, this particular biome has 2 lime nodes. So we have one here, and I believe another one is somewhere over here. I'm not exactly sure where it's at, but I'm going to go ahead and make a couple concrete factories and get things started. Now that we have kind of our height determined and where it's going to be located, basically I'm going to make some blueprints and just brick this entire biome. As much of it as I can. And if any wildlife gets in my way, it won't get in the way for long. You know what? Driving back and forth, real pain in the butt. You know what we're going to do? Hyper Tube Launcher. Send it.
Milestone reached. By adding hypertube entrances at both ends of hypertubes, pioneers can achieve 2-way travel between locations. They are also % safer than jump pads.
Putting an entrance and an exit at the very beginning seems like a great idea, Ada, but we're going to take it to the next level. If you kind of chain these together, you can make what's called a hypertube cannon. And hypertube cannons will launch you wherever you want to go. Now, if you've never experienced the joy of a hypertube cannon, I totally suggest that you do it. But fair warning, if you don't have a jetpack, it seems like a really foolish idea. Now, this is just a basic one. It's 9. Let's see how far this will get us. Oh, I missed you, hypertube cannons. This thing can yeet you into the next dimension if you want it. And it gets you right back here as fast as you can. Way faster than traveling by a truck. The problem is landing. Nice soft landing with the jetpack. Nice. Alright, so I have been busy over here, even though I do want to play around with that hypertube cannon, but I need a lot of materials over here. And going back and forth, it's the whole reason I unlocked the hypertubes. because I need to just shoot myself back and forth to get the things that I need. We're going to need a lot more steel, a lot more rotors, a lot of things. And the quickest way to get back and forth to do that thing is going to be the hypertube cannons, because we just need to yeet ourselves back and forth over and over again. We don't have quite the materials that we need right now. We still have a lot of empty crates, and I need more stuff. Stuff like beams and encased industrial beams, cable, plastic, all that stuff. We'll probably have to shoot ourselves all the way to the plastic a couple times, but we'll see about that when we get there. Hypertube cannons, I love them. They're so awesome. Eat a lot of power, but totally worth it. Now with an extra supply of materials to build with, we need to do a couple of blueprints. We need just to be able to blueprint a ton of foundations. So we'll just do a big block here of different height foundations in case we need to do a 2 or a 1 or however we need to do it. We could just kind of copy paste this ad nauseum. It'll be pretty easy once we get going. Doing these big 5x5 blocks of foundations will be pretty awesome. We'll also do the same for walls. We'll just make a big blueprint of like 6 high. I don't know how exactly high we need to go, but 6 seems like a good kind of starting ground, and we can remove things as we need to. The good thing about the blueprint is that you can make a blueprint, save it, delete the top row, save it again, delete another row, save it, and keep doing that until you get the height that you want. So it's not too big of a deal. But the MAM research is done. Did we get our recipe? No. Well, all right. Let's scan another hard drive. But before we really get started, I think there's one more thing we need to unlock back at the hub. It's Mark II piping. The reason is we need to be able to put 600 materials through a pipe. The water and other things of that nature, just to consolidate things and not have so many logistical nightmares to deal with. So I'm gonna shoot myself back there and we will unlock Mark II piping. Select the milestone, load all the appropriate materials, and launch it into space. Pipeline 2 unlocked.
Milestone reached. Pipelines and pipeline pumps can now be upgraded to Mark II. They are like Mark I, but better. Pipes seem to be objects of fascination to humans. In fact, there are recorded instances of humans doing nothing but thinking about pipes for hours.
Easy, Ada. This is a family show. Alright, so everything is unlocked. Everything is at the place where we want it to be. Let's just get over there and start the building, because laying down the foundation, oh boy, time is of the essence. Well, with the MAM cooking hard drives and our foundations kind of set in the height that we want it to be, there's nothing left to do but to start in on this super project. Now, getting your first blueprint to kind of match up where you want it to be, that's kind of not fun. But you can still kind of press H, find out where you want it, or, you know, be okay with it being off one little tile. The good thing is if you do happen to mess up and you want to delete an entire blueprint, if you press R, it'll delete the entire of that blueprint. So you can have the chance to do it again. Now, in my opinion, the best way to start a blueprint is have a 4-meter foundation that you can kind of target a lot of surface area with, and then have somewhere where you can be down below it. And then get your foundation out, figure out about where you want it to be, press the H to hold, and then come in and make those fine-tune adjustments that you need. Once you get the first foundation down where you want it, doing the rest of them is pretty easy. Because once again, in blueprint mode, you have 2 different options. You have the default, which means that you can kind of shift things like 1 meter or half a meter at a time. And that's fine and dandy if you're doing some fine-tune work. But if you press R again, it just matches it up right where it is. No matter how much you move around, as long as you're within a decent range, it'll just pop that sucker right in. Makes laying out a humongous factory floor super easy. And that's the plan. Now, what we'll do is we'll kind of do a 1 meter floor all over this. And I'll go as far as I can without trying to clip into too much of the terrain. We may have to kind of make some adjustments and do some actual building of our own instead of using the blueprint. But the idea is we're going to brick a lot of this, and it's going to be massive. It has to be massive. And once we get that other alternate recipe, we'll go over the numbers of what it'll be. So now you understand, this is why I made the local concrete, because we just blew through a ton of concrete in like no time at all. And this biome is going to require a lot of it. Like I said, you see that water? Not anymore. Now, there will be quite a few pop-ins on this because building like this, it takes a tremendous amount of time. And as we've said before, I don't have a ton of time to build like this. So we'll make as much of this as quickly as possible. But I gotta be honest with you, the scope of what I'm thinking, I hope that this biome can contain it. Ooh, a hard drive's done. Did we get it? No. Did we get it? No. Did we get it? No, 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 no. Ooh, no, no. Well, that's okay, because in the meantime of cooking hard drives, we've been busy, and the entirety of this is completely bricked. Yeah, that's a lot of concrete. We went through a bunch of concrete. I believe I went through an entire inventory almost of concrete. And we also found some slugs in the process. Oh my gosh, yeah. Now you can kind of see the scope of what this project is going to be. And we're going to fill this up with all kinds of refineries. Now the idea is this. I want to just see kind of the tops of the refineries from the edge of the pit. Yes, it is a refinery pit. And I kind of just want to see all of the lights and the smokestacks. That's really it. So I think that's a good thing. Why is my sun setting? Oh yeah, if you didn't know, mods are back active. And I got the best one of all, Sky UI. This one allows you to set the time of whatever you want. And I like working in the noonday sun. You can pause it, skip it hours, skip it a lot. You want to work at night? Work at night. If you want to work during the day, work during the day. You want a pretty little picture for a thumbnail? I think that this is the prettiest that this biome could ever be. Oh, mercy. Yeah, it's a good time. This biome is so beautiful in like the late day sun. That purple hue, I love it. But unfortunately, spiders come out at that time, so we'll put ourselves back at noon. Much better. Now we have a blue haze. It is the Blue Crater Lake after all. But this is the kind of idea, so we need to make ourselves a few other blueprints to fill in the gap of all this empty space. Now, as we still haven't got the alternate recipe that we need, finding out exactly how many of everything that we need is going to be difficult, but we can kind of make the blueprints. And if we need some more time, we can set up the water because I'm pretty sure I know my numbers. I just wanted to confirm that nothing has changed. So this is our heavy oil residue one. It basically takes crude oil, turns it into heavy oil residue, and then spits out a bit of polymer resin. Now, I know this recipe exists. I mean, at least it did in the past. This is the one that we're waiting on. The numbers is where I'm not sure. So I'll do a basic recipe of making 3 refineries, and then we can just erase anything that we don't need. If we need 30 of them, then it'll be 3 rows of 10 and done. If we need 25 of them or 22 of them, well, we'll just delete ones to make it as even as possible. Or underclock a few to make them look even and symmetrical, because that's what we do. Oh, we have to be symmetrical and painful. The next recipe that we can do is the heavy oil residue into packaged diluted fuel. Now, this one is kind of a painful one. We have to get the packaged water into the machine as well as the heavy oil residue at 30 a minute. Now, that's kind of not that difficult. The difficult part is we have to get this fuel out of its package and into the turbo fuel refineries. And we have to do that with a packager. Now, The new blueprint models really make this a lot better, but boy oh boy did we come to the very edge of this blueprint maker. A 5x5 is still almost too small. I can't believe it. I know they make a 6x6, but I don't really need that much. I like trying to make things pretty. Now, this thing produces 60 a minute, and the unpackagers, well, they'll unpackage 60 a minute. So we just have a regular Mark 1 belt going into this, and then all that packaged fuel goes out into the turbo fuel. The packagers will spit out all the empty canisters, and they'll go back into the lake and into being packaged water. And then those will come back up and go into the machine as packaged water and be spit back out as diluted packaged fuel again. And it's just a non-stop loop of empty canisters. Now, there are blender recipes that do basically the same thing, and you don't have to deal with the empty canisters, but we're limited by our technology. Blenders don't come in until the next phase, and I'm not ready to do that just yet. So for now, this is going to be how we have to do it. It's an extra step, but it's worth it. We'll be fine. We need the fuel, and we need a lot of it. Now, the final blueprint that we need is the turbo fuel. That's where we just have fuel and compacted coal going in and turbo fuel going out. We need 22.5 fuel and 15 compacted coal to make 18.75 turbo fuel. That's a lot of turbo fuel. It's turbo-tastic. Now, in the fuel generators, they burn the turbo fuel at 7.5 per minute. That's a pretty low burn rate, and it'll give us 250 megawatts. Well, if we take 18.75 and divide that by 7.5, that'll give us 2.5 generators run off of one refinery. Now, if we take those 2.5 generators and multiply that by 250, well, that gives us 625 megawatts. And there's 3 refineries there. So 3 refineries will give us 1,878 megawatts. Now, everything depends on that heavy oil residue recipe, because if not, we have to do plastic and rubber, and honestly, those things, they take up a lot more space. It's going to be a lot more refineries, and I want my footprint to be as small as possible. So instead of putting down like 100 machines, we'd end up putting down like 10, 20, I don't know. Again, I want to make sure that recipe is right first. I know it's there. I went into my creative mode and found it. But while we wait, we might as well just go ahead and gather up all this oil and bring it up in here. We'll probably bring it here and do most of our oil processing in this area. And then we'll send that over to what would be our fuel processing area. We'll have to bring the water up some way. And the turbo, well, I'm afraid we're going to need a big amount of space for all those turbo refineries. I believe we're going to need upwards of 90. Yeah, 90 refineries. It's a good time. Why did I do this to myself? Am I crazy? No, you're crazy. You're crazy for not doing this. Of course we're going to do this. This is the best thing to do. Turbo fuel is the best. It's the best fuel in the game. I'm not crazy at all. All right, so in the meantime, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and gather up all this oil and bring it over here. And we'll have it just adjacent in here. Now, a little bit of a pro tip. The pipes always have seemed to be kind of a little finicky when it comes to the floor holes and the wall holes. So the best thing I can tell you to do is whenever you're thinking about going through the wall or something to that nature, what I tend to do is bring these across like so. And that way, when I fill this back in, it still looks like the wall hole. Now, it's not perfect by all means because you have this little peg at the bottom, but I really don't trust those. They tend to not let the fluid flow through, but you can still build through the walls and everything, so it's not too big a deal. These things will work just fine like this, but they don't seem to want to do it the other way. Well, all the piping is done, and we still don't have the recipe. Yeah, it looks a bit of a spaghetti mess, but I promise you, it's mostly organized. We did color the 1 so that we know that that's the 150 line, but everything else, 600 oil coming up in 4 different places. That's a lot of oil. More oil than we actually need, but we'll need it for other things in the very near future, I'm sure. So while that's going on, what is something else that we can do while we let those hard drives cook? Well, one thing we can do is go and start working on the water. We do need to get a bunch of water kind of up and going. Oh, excuse me, sir. So I'm thinking that we'll probably put most of it like here in this bigger area. Well, that means we need to get a few foundations down. How many exactly? Well, we'll probably just zoop these. It'll be easier for us to do the zooping. If we just come off of here and make sure that everything is lined up. And a matter of fact, this does tend to match up with that water pretty nicely. All right, well, we can do, I think, we're going to need about 2,000 water. So a little bit more than that. And these things take up about that much space? I'm not really sure. We'll have to put a few of them down to kind of get an idea. So back to back, we can get about this much space, which means this tile. That's good. All right, so for 2,000 water, it's a pretty scary big number. So if we take 2,000 and we divide it by 120, it gives us about 16 generators. Now I want to kind of overproduce the water. So we'll probably, for our purposes, do something like, I don't know, 19? That seems like a decent enough number. Maybe 18. I'm not exactly sure. I'll kind of make that call as I go along. But then we'll have all the water come down here. Now, I could package all the water down here, and that would make things easier. But I really want to see the packages moving up and down and all around upstairs. I think it would just add to the kind of what that upstairs needs to look like. Just busy, busy, busy. So I think we'll pump the water up. Probably go about here, somewhere abouts, and then just go straight up. But until we really figure out where it is that we need to go, finding out a place of where we're going to put all those water packaging plants, I don't know where it's going to be yet. We've got it. Oh, finally. After so many scans of hard drives, finally it is unlocked. I will definitely be selecting my reward. My patience has finally paid off, and we can set that recipe as soon as possible. This thing is exactly what I expected it to be. 40 heavy oil residue a minute. Now, we'll probably sink that polymer resin. We'll use a little bit of it to do some making of plastic and things of that nature, but for the most part, it's just going directly into the garbage for points. This is what we've been waiting on the entire time. I am so pleased. Okay, now we can really get going. And I was considering just starting to put things in place. So we really need to talk about the numbers. So if you didn't know, there's two really good websites out there for making any kind of factory planning. This one is Satisfactory Tools. The other one is for Satisfactory Calculator. Now it shows the map. The map is really handy on that one. But this one, I feel, is a lot better for planning out any kind of logistics that you're about to do. How many of something you want a minute. So we selected turbo fuel, and we're putting in about 1750 a minute. That's a lot of turbo fuel. Yes, I know. Now, the thing is we have about 1400-ish sulfur. Now, that's a 1-to-1 ratio for compacted coal. So we'll need 56 assemblers for said compacted coal. And it'll give us 1400 compact coal. With the alternate heavy oil residue, we're going to need 25-ish refineries making it, with about 776 crude oil a minute. Now, this should give us about 1,000-ish heavy oil residue. And I keep saying ish because our goal is 1,000 heavy oil residue. So if we produce a little bit less, that's fine by me. So with that 1,000 heavy oil residue, we'll be turning that into the diluted packaged fuel. And it'll pretty much double our fuel. So whatever goes in, comes out. And again, we're shooting for about 1,000. So 2,000 fuel coming out of the diluted packaged fuel. Once we unpack that fuel, and it says, again, 2,100, we turn it into 1,750 turbo fuel. That's going to require 93.33 refineries. That's a lot of refineries, and I've considered overclocking them to make that footprint smaller. but I really think that it's going to be awesome seeing about 94 refineries just hanging out. Oh my gosh, this is a project that I'm just starting to regret a little. But let's jump back into the game and finish up a couple projects. Now that we have all of our recipes and we're ready to really start kicking this into high gear, we need to go gather up that sulfur. And if I remember correctly, that sulfur is right up in this area. So I need a logistics tower that comes from here all the way down and into our main base. Now, my plan is to have all of the turbo fuel refineries here, because 93 of them will take up the majority of this space. All the heavy oil producers over here, probably the packaged water about in this area. I don't know if it'll be long ways or out ways. I haven't decided yet. And then we'll have all the fuel coming in this area. So it'll fill up the majority of it. I want to try and save some space for the compact coal area. I don't know if that's going to be in the middle here or if it's going to be somewhere else. Haven't really decided yet, but I do know that I need to go collect all those up. But to talk about that last big scary number, the 1,750 turbo fuel, if we divide that by its consumption of the generators, you're talking about 233.3 generators. That's a lot of generators. And if we multiply a rounded number of 233 times the 250 megawatts that they each produce, that's 58,250 megawatts of power. Man, 233 of those generators. I don't think we bricked in enough. I'm starting to realize the scope of this real fast. But yeah, I tell you what, I'm going to gather up this sulfur, I'm going to finish the water, and I'm going to get some of these refineries popped in. Because I got to be honest with you, this is going to take a while. And I don't think I have enough time left in this episode. And there it is. Oh my goodness. So much time has gone by to create all of this. There are so many refineries, so many. But let's just kind of do an overview of this and see the cacophony of awfulness that I have just created. So we'll start with the water here because I waffled around with balancing this upstairs or balancing it down here, and I thought to myself, I'm going to try to balance the water first and then go from there because we needed 540 water. And that 540 water is necessary because those packagers are still restricted to a 480 belt. So 540 water goes up and over. 60 comes out of this one and goes through this valve and finishes off this to a 540 water as well. And then we just did that the same on the other side. And then all four of these lines come up here and go straight upstairs. Once they're upstairs, they just basically go into every one of these. Now, unfortunately, because of the 480 and because of the fact that I wanted all this to look even, we have one on the end of each one of these to perform its own duties. Now, they'll be fed on the same water line, but they have a totally different line for the empty canisters and the canisters themselves. They all kind of come down here and merge into a different line. It's two lines of 270. Now, I think we need about 250, and that's it. So all of these lines go back and forth, over each other, under each other, whatever it takes to get to the refineries. But before all the refineries happen, we have all of the heavy oil residue. Now each of these produces the 40 heavy oil residue and the 20 polymer resin. The resin is just going to go down to the end here and probably go underneath and get sunk somewhere. I don't know, probably underneath. We'll just grind everything up underneath. The last two in this line though, they're just here for aesthetics, just to make things even. This one actually does produce at 15 a minute, but this one here, it's set to a clock speed of 1. It's not going to produce that much, and I just wanted it to make this even across the board. Now, all of these come into their own little buffer, and why is the buffer here? Well, I don't need the buffer, but I want to have it because it fills in this space, makes it look so much more industrial, like it's doing something. But once again, I had to do a little bit of balancing, so this one's going to produce a little less, but I wanted this to be my 600 line on the outside. So we just did a little bit of balancing. This valve only allows 55 through. That way it feeds into this one primarily, and then the other 55 goes this way. Now this one down here, it produces the full allotment, and I don't really need the valve here, except for, if I remember correctly, it stops it from backflowing in. I don't want it to backflow. I want it to go this way and down. Next is the packaged fuel, and we needed 4 more, and the reason is I needed a couple more to finish off the numbers. We were doing even rows of 9 because, once again, we're limited by the 480 belts. So I didn't want to make another set of 9 and underclock a bunch of them. I just think that would be silly and probably mess up my belting. I didn't want to overflow one belt too many, this, that, and the other. Now, we were running out of space, and so I kind of just filled in all of this with some extra space. Yeah, these refineries are positioned differently. I don't know. I kind of like it. Once again, it's adding to the busyness of it. There's a lot of belts that go here and there and everywhere just to make sure that we're getting the correct amount of belts in the correct amount of places. Then once I got down here, I needed a few more just to finish the numbers off. I could have put them over there, but I was already content with the way it looks over there. Plus, I'm pretty sure I'm going to need to balance some things with pipes and whatnot, fuel and all that jazz. But basically, this is it. This is the beginning of the turbo fuel factory. Now, what's the last bit? Well, it's going to be those turbo fuel refineries. 94 of them to be exact. Now, 94 is a bit overkill. We need 93.3. So, yeah. This is getting awesome. Now, the last thing I'll probably need to do is I'll need to go and grab the last bit of sulfur that we need. And I believe that's over there. So we're going to have another logistics tower coming down somewhere over here and into this area. I'm pretty sure that all of the compacted coal will probably be made in this particular area. I'll make it like a control center in the middle of this, a big tower that goes up. But as we're running out of time, this requires another pop-in. So I hope you're ready to see some turbo fuel. This is probably the biggest project I have ever tackled in my entire time playing Satisfactory. It is unbelievable how many of these there are. I can't even wrap my head around it. I honestly, it started to make me go a little crazy. I was so concerned with the numbers. I thought, no way, this can't be right. 93, it's got to be wrong. I did the numbers again. I crunched them. I went over here. I checked. I counted again. I counted a third time. I went over to the other side and I said, no, this is not it. I can't believe this. This has to be wrong. 93 has got to be an impossible number. But it's true. 93. 94 to be exact. At the same time as doing all that, I went ahead and got the logistics from the other side. And when I was over there, I found a whole bunch of coal, pure coal nodes. So to be honest, we got more coal than we need. And that's going to be a great problem to have. The other thing is none of this is belted or piped up yet. And I got to be honest, I was working on this until 1 in the morning. Yeah, it took forever. So I'm really out of time, guys. This is gonna have to be it. Oh, man, 94 refineries. Gosh, the craziness of what it is. And honestly, we don't even know if it works. It could very well I turn it on and it just blows everything up and then I'm back to square one and I got to try to figure all this out. Are you kidding me? I don't have time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. But anyways, guys, I think that's going to be it today. And if you are excited to see part 2 of this turbo fuel refinery, go ahead and leave me a comment in the comment section. If you're looking for ways to support, there's 2 links in the description. One is for Patreon, where support on Patreon gets you a name in the credits. And the other is for Discord. Discord is free to join, and I'd be happy to see you as part of the community. But as always, the best way to support is to like and subscribe, as it does help the channel out. Hit the notification bell so you can be alerted of any time Satisfactory or any other content gets uploaded to the page. Hit one of the buttons on the screen right now to see what else we've played, and don't forget to keep gaming for the love of games. Bye now.